Hi, I'm Irene Sacalato with Osprey Photo Workshops and Tours. This is part 5 of a series of programs in wildlife photography. Today I'm going to talk about composition. Before I talked about other issues, including lighting. Composition refers to the arrangement of elements in a photograph with the aim of creating something that's pleasing to the eye. It's balanced, it's engaging, it holds the viewer's attention. Composition should direct the viewer's eye to the subject. It should be unified. It should convey maybe a story, a mood, an emotion, using techniques such as leading lines, color, framing, contrast, negative space, etc., to take the viewer into the photograph, engage them, and let them see the subject. There are rules about composition, but they're not guarantees of success. An image can be ruined by poor photographic technique, out of focus, overexposed subjects, a number of things. Even the scene may not be suited to the constraints of the rules. Backgrounds are very important to composition. I'll discuss them in the next program. Remember that photography is an art form. It somewhat reflects the personality experiences of the creator. And certainly you must consider the intended use of the material. Is it for interior design, editorial use, education, gallery displays, etc.? First thing I think about when taking a picture is deciding what makes me stop and look at the scene, what compels me, what makes me want to take that shot. Knowing this, I can pick out the lenses, the camera angle, the lighting, the background that I want, that'll help me transmit my thoughts and feelings when I approach the subject and let the viewer see what I'm seeing. I don't want to have to explain the image. In the case here, this is a little ghost crab. What I really liked about it, it had a shell that was camouflaged. It blended into the background. It blended in with the sand that was around it. And I love those eye stalks. I'm trying to make sure that they were very sharp in the image because they sort of reminded me of a little space alien. Rules of composition, they're not really rules, hard and fast rules. They're actually guidelines. You can ignore them if you have a reason. But one of the overreaching things that you need to remember about your composition is simplicity. You want to eliminate clutter. You want to focus attention on the essentials. You want to look around the edges of the frame to make sure there's not something drawing out of the frame. You want to make sure that the background doesn't have distractions. All of those things are going to help your composition. There is one rule that you commonly hear about. It's called the rule of thirds. Divide the frame into thirds horizontally and vertically and place the key elements at the intersections. You don't want to center the subject in a lot of cases, although sometimes it works. A lot of other times it makes for a very static image. You don't want to cut off portions of a subject. People tend to like odd number of key elements instead of even. All movement must be frozen. That's something that's not necessarily so, and you'll see that when I talk about shutter speed in a later session. The top image of the flower, it's centered. The butterflies have the wings cut off. There's only 2 of them. It breaks a number of rules, and yet it's an effective photograph. In the case of the heron displaying its feathers, I love the symmetry of it. It may be somewhat centered, but it's a beautiful image that shows all of those fine feathers, and he's in a courting display. Very important. The lower image of the puffin, well, it's vertically centered, but I like it because there's an eye contact with me. There's the feeling that he is determined that he is going to walk forward no matter if I'm there or I'm not. In terms of the fighting puffins, I like them centered because it really focuses attention on the struggle and on those bills that are interconnected. One of my rules is kind of leaving room in the frame for where something's looking or moving. In the case of these cheetahs, it suggests that they see something out there on the plains that they may want to chase, or that may be an enemy. In terms of the blackbird, that red eye, the bill, the way the wings are, and so forth, you know it's going to go diving after something. I don't know quite why, but I left room at the bottom for it to move. In terms of the fox, well, he's intently looking at something. I don't know what it is, but it engages my thoughts. I think about, is it a little mouse? I don't know. I like the angle. I like that diagonal from the tail towards the nose. In the upper image of the puffin, I've got more room above and I've got more room in front of him. That's one of my guidelines. I happen to include this image because it has rim light on it. And if you remember last time, I talked about rim light and how it helps separate the subject from the background. Same thing happens with this sandhill crane that's landing. I left more room in front for him to land, and we also have that rim light. In terms of the two bottom images, we've got a lot of symmetry. Some people will say, well, it's kind of centered, and I don't know. I really love the symmetry there. I love the reflections. It makes these images unique, and that's important. My overreaching rule of composition I mentioned earlier is simplicity, eliminating the unnecessary, the clutter, the distractions. Some people like, and I occasionally use, negative space in an image. It helps simplify the image and focus the attention on the main subject. Cutting off portions of a subject. Well, I did it with the snake, and I did it because I love the curves in the body and I love the patterns on its body. In terms of the bald eagle, I like the framing that I had. It shows off the hook of the bill. It shows off those eyes. He's quite a unique predator. In terms of the heron below, I started off following them, and I was thinking about using this image in one of my programs about wildlife photography, about how herons and other birds will hang out around water control devices, any place where water flows underneath something. There's food that accumulates in those areas. And so I followed along with him, and all of a sudden I said, oh, look at that. He's framed by that shadowed background where that culvert is. And so I took the picture. I don't want to cut off portions of a subject. For instance, I don't want to cut off the ears, the wings, the tail, the feet. Now, we've seen some cases earlier where, yes, there were things cut off because there was a purpose. But if you have this little raccoon here, if I cut the image right where you see the end of his legs, it would feel very uncomfortable. I leave room, a platform for where the feet would be if you could see them. The same thing with this groundhog. He's got beautiful rim light, by the way, on him. And there's room underneath where his feet might be. The bird below, the heron, is a good example of, oh, if I cut the image where I see the last part of that leg showing, well, it's going to be very uncomfortable. It's not going to be very effective. I want to leave room in the frame, and I did, for where I projected that the leg would be and that the feet would be on the ground. In the case of the raccoon, well, I'm not real happy with it because I cut off the feet. Lines, contrast, and color can draw the viewer into the frame, identify the subject. In this case, we have contrast in terms of the white around the face that brings the eye into the frame. We also have contrast, separation of that beautiful red and colors of the macaw against that dark green background. We also have a nice diagonal line that leads up to the subject. In the case of this green kingfisher, we also sort of have a diagonal line there, but we got a harmony in terms of colors. We got a bunch of related colors, all these beautiful shades of green. It creates a very, very pleasant mood. It's something that you might want to hang on the wall. It's very calming. Sometimes I squint when I'm looking at a subject, particularly when I'm after capturing maybe shapes and patterns and lines in the picture, because by doing that, you cut out the detail and you see these basic shapes. With flowers, I often will squint basically so that I can see things in the background that are a problem, like a black rock, something white, and so forth. In the case of this walrus, what was really special about the walrus was his shape and the shapes of all the rocks around him and how they relate to one another. In the case of the flamingo below, no, it's not a picture about the flamingo. It's really about all those interesting angles. And by squinting, you kind of get rid of some of the details and you see some of these strong lines. I don't like subjects moving out of the frame. I don't like when something intrudes into the frame, like with the jaguar, with that piece of grass coming across. I don't like things blocking our subjects. So these grasses and vegetation that's in front of these sandhill cranes doesn't make for a very effective picture. I don't like subjects that are moving away. I don't like subjects that blend into the background or where I have shadows on the faces of subjects and where some of those subjects blend together as that upper picture of those sandhill cranes. I do, however, like this picture below. I love the flow of the birds. I love the fact that they're not placed against the tree line. It's quite a beautiful picture, and it also shows, you can even see, because there's light on the face, you can see the reds on their head. This little pineable grebe, okay, maybe it breaks a rule in that we're looking at the back of it, maybe moving away a little bit, but actually it's probably just floating there. What I really like about it is that little triangle. That's the white feathers that form its tail. And what's really special about it is we have a reflection, and we have a reflection of that same white area down into the water, and we almost have a little square basically formed. I love the reflections in this picture, and so I don't mind that I'm looking at the back of him. I like the little puffin here. I left room behind him instead of a lot of room in front because I wanted to show the turbulence in the water as he's trying to take flight. The bottom line is they have a difficult time getting out of the water. You can see the wing is helping them. They don't fly really well, but they swim fantastically. That's their skill underwater as they chase fish. Sometimes my emotions get caught up in the scene. I see a heron, he's caught a fish. Oh, goody. We've got some reflection there. We got some turbulence in the water. And then all of a sudden I notice, oops, there's a shadow there I don't like. And he's kind of moving away. He's looking away from me. I don't like that as well as the image that's below, that we have a little bit of tonal gradient on the shoulder that shows the shape. The eye is very clear. We got this beautiful sparkling water flowing from his bill. Sometimes you want to fill the frame with a subject, and that's just fine. Sometimes you might want to think about including the environment. In the lower picture here, we have a bighorn sheep, just like we have a bighorn sheep up there. But this bighorn sheep is a very small portion of the entire image. He's also silhouetted against a lit background, and we have some alternating shade and light in the picture, which makes it more interesting. But what's really special about it is it shows the immense space that's around him. It shows you these beautiful formations of the Badlands and how they extend way out into the distance. That's the end of this part. We're going to move on to part 6 next time with backgrounds and camera angles, and we're going to discuss those, storytelling, and a number of other things as we go forward in these presentations. Up top there, you have my website. Take a look at it. You'll find some interesting things. You'll find a place to sign up for my free newsletter. You'll find out what particular photo workshops and tours are coming up in my schedule. You can check out my blogs. They have some interesting information in terms of photo technique and photo locations. At the bottom of the home page, you'll find a link to my YouTube channel. On that channel, I have discussions about wildlife photography, and I also have several segments of little short videos of animal behavior that you might find interesting. It's been a pleasure to talk to you all. I hope you come back. I hope you sign up for more sessions. In other words, I hope you follow me. I hope you learned something. I hope it stimulates some of your thoughts when you're out in the field, and that you'll end up getting some better photos because of it. Enjoy your photography, enjoy wildlife. Thank you.